What's up, you guys? Bloody Jacob here to bring you another set of action movie reviews. Tonight we're going to be talking about Red Heat from 1988, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger as well as Jim Belushi, along with Marked for Death and Out for Justice, both starring Steven Seagal.
Jacob here, meeting my icon, Catherine Isabel here.
And we're going to be talking about Red Heat first. Again, Red Heat came out in 1988, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jim Belushi, along with Peter Boyle, and tells the story of a tough Russian policeman who is forced to partner up with a cocky Chicago detective when he is sent to Chicago to apprehend a Georgian drug lord who killed his father, or who killed, his partner and fled the country. And yeah, I got the DVD copy of Red Heat here, and it's funny, I ended up ordering the DVD copy a while ago, and I go to this new local, DVD CD store in my area, and they happen to have the Blu-ray. That's how it goes, so I'm going to have to get a Blu-ray version of it at some point. And if you guys didn't know, I haven't done enough videos on my channel. I still feel like I haven't covered enough of his movies and his work and just him in general, but Arnold Schwarzenegger, he's been a hero of mine since I was a little kid. I remember in I think it was like elementary or middle school or something, I read an autobiography of his they had in the school library, actually, and yeah, I think I might have wrote a report on him too or something, I don't know, but I've loved him since I was a little kid, and I still see him as the greatest action hero of all time. I love how he is as a person, and he's just so classic and iconic, and I could keep throwing general adjectives at him that people have used a million times already. But as far as this actual movie, it came out in '88, so it was kind of caught up in that Terminator and Predator attention that he was doing at the time. So I sometimes feel like Red Heat sort of gets lost in the shuffle, because it's not really a standard Arnold flick, at least for the most part. I mean, it's not really too over the top. It's not like a flashy Arnie movie or anything like that. It's not like a one where you get like his big, signature personality in your face or anything like that. I mean, you still have him, he still has his presence, but something that director Walter Hill did was specifically try to basically downplay Arnold Schwarzenegger a little bit in a good way, not throw in as many one-liners for him in there. He wanted to draw on the strengths he really did seriously see in Arnold Schwarzenegger as an actor, and that's his, the way he looks at people, the way he sort of, expresses, like even his little, facial mannerisms and stuff like that, and I think that's a big compliment to how good Schwarzenegger could be as an actor, and, he easily slips into the glove of this, tough, really disciplined Russian soldier. And it's not to say that, like a more realistic Schwarzenegger character here means there's no fun factor. This movie does have a big fun factor to it. I had quite a good time with it. In fact, the movie opens with Arnold Schwarzenegger basically fighting a guy bare naked in the snow. So there's that. And just, of course, the main part of this movie is the dynamic between Schwarzenegger and Belushi, who, of course, are, opposite, good foil buddy cop thing to one another. Belushi is pretty good here, too. The villains I didn't think were too bad. I mean, I don't think they're overly memorable, honestly. But it was good seeing Peter Boyle as the police captain. And also Gina Gershon had a role in it as well. Yeah, Victor, our real main villain here. Lawrence Fishburne also had a supporting role in this. But Edo Ross, he didn't do a bad job acting-wise. I just didn't think he came across as, I don't know, as like a good match for Schwarzenegger. And again, it didn't have to be that over-the-top type of action movie either. There are some pretty solid shootouts in this movie, though. They do get quite violent. In fact, one of my favorite sequences in the movie is Schwarzenegger in this hotel he's staying in, and eventually he has to come out of it. You know, he's in like this white sleeveless shirt, just going around with this big pistol. I forget the kind of gun it was exactly, but it was one that Belushi had given to him, and it's just a really cool sequence. There's a good amount of blood with it and everything like that. So yeah, Red Heat, I could talk about it a while longer, but I don't like to make these videos overly long. Again, it's just been easier sort of bundling some of these action movies together because I've been watching a ton of them. So it's just, you know, also more productive not to do one by one all the time. Except for specific ones, which we will be talking about the 1987 Predator in its own video before too long. So looking forward to talking about that. But Red Heat, I think is a really enjoyable Schwarzenegger flick. I do think it's overlooked. I'm giving about like an 86% right in there. So then I gotta talk about Red Heat. And next up, we're going to be going into Marked for Death, released in 1990 and starring Steven Seagal. And according to IMDb, a retired DEA agent is out to hunt down and take out a Jamaican drug posse that's targeted he and his family for murder. And it involves, you know, Seagal's character, Hatcher, you know, returning to his hometown to find some, you know, some kind of serenity or understanding with himself after some traumatic events in his line of work. But instead, of course, you know, he finds that his old neighborhood isn't what it used to be, and it's been taken over by, you know, by gangs and stuff like that. And we do see an appearance from Danielle Harris in this. Danielle Harris, of course, has become a basically a horror legend, you know, in that genre. She's one of my all-time favorites. If you guys didn't know, horror is still my favorite genre. But she's in this as a little kid again. It was odd that we didn't really see much of her at the end, considering when her and you know, the mother are attacked. That kind of spurs, you know, Seagal's Hatcher to you know, hunt down these people, and then we don't really get a resolution with her. We know she's in a coma, but you know, I figured we'd see some scene of her waking up or something. I don't know, but we don't need to go into that. It's still a fun seeing her in it, like when she greets Seagal at the door. It's a pretty cute scene. And now, Steven Seagal. I do have it on Blu-ray here. I've really been trying to give Seagal a chance for some reason. By the way, I prefer the poster I used in the thumbnail to the cover of this Blu-ray. I just think it's a more unique looking, you know, just a poster for the, or like promotional shot for the film than this cover is. This cover is a little basic to me, but you know, it was still pretty convenient to find it on Blu-ray when I did. But you know, I've been trying to give Seagal a chance. I still think he's a, you know, piece of work to say the least behind the scenes. I did hear he was at that fan expo in Canada recently, and he actually seemed to be decent to his fans, according to you know, our man from the Action Elite in the group on Facebook. So you know, if he's decent to his fans, that counts for something. Or if he is, you know, from time to time anyway. You know, I still don't care for, you know, how he's disrespected other, you know, martial arts stars, you know, over the decades and stuff like that, and you know, his whole, you know, web of lies within himself, right? Of what he's tried to make of himself and what he's contradicted and stuff like that. He's a hell of a person behind the scenes, it seems, to work with, but I don't know. I'm getting more used to him as a screen presence. You know, there's something about it. It's a little weird, but at the same time, if you're in the mood for it, he can actually be a bit enjoyable. And I gotta say, Marked for Death is probably my favorite one of his I've seen so far. I feel like I do gotta revisit Under Siege at some point, but I do think Marked for Death is a bit better. Our Jamaican drug lord here, our, you know, leader Screwface, played by Basil Wallace. He's good. The gang in this almost feels like an extension of the gang you see in like Predator 2 or something like that. But there could be types of voodoo kind of cults like this and stuff like that, especially in that time. But it is kind of playing on stereotypes as well. But it kind of works. And Basil Wallace's Screwface is actually kind of creepy. He has a decent presence to him. He's probably the most unique villain in a Seagal film, from what I know anyway. And the final fight between Seagal and Screwface is actually pretty satisfying. I got a hell of a lot more out of it than the Tommy Lee Jones one, Under Siege. This one was more violent. Seagal actually took some hits in this, which is surprising, at least briefly. And then how Seagal is finally able to defeat Screwface on both occasions is pretty brutal. I mean, I know it had to be edited quite a bit, so there's like a lot of kind of sharp cuts that kind of chop it up a little bit. But still satisfying. Some brutal moves by Seagal to finally put down Screwface. I mean, I'm assuming you guys have seen this movie. If you haven't, I'm sorry, but the eye gouge, the back break, and stuff like that. Now, if Seagal actually had the strength to do that, I don't know. But still, it made for a satisfying final fight with, a fairly unique and odd villain. I'll say that much. There's a couple other decent sequences in the movie from an action standpoint as well. And Keith David, he was also a likable presence there as an old friend of Hatcher's. And, the whole coming home aspect, made a little bit of an attempt to make any Seagal sort of character a bit more relatable. There's also this scene in a confessional early on where you actually see Seagal try to act a little bit, I think. And it kind of works, kind of doesn't. Kind of had to see more of it, kind of didn't want to. It's still a mixed thing for me and Seagal. I have a love-hate relationship with him, I guess. So besides that, overall, it was a good, pretty damn. I don't know if I want to say pretty damn good, but pretty good Seagal flick. Again, probably my favorite of his so far, and really, what it comes down to again is just that odd mood I may or may not be in. That I'm apparently still in because I'm about to stalk for Out for Justice too. But yeah, so Marked for Death. If I had to rate it, I'm probably giving it, I don't know, anywhere between like an 82, 85%, somewhere in there. I liked it more than I wanted to. I'm trying to admit to it here. But yeah, something you guys saw about Marked for Death. And then as far as Out for Justice, which came out just a year later in 1991, according to IMDb, the gruesome murder of a Brooklyn detective will turn the case into a personal vendetta when the deceased's best friend and fellow officer unleashes an all-out attack against a psychotic mafia enforcer's brutal gang. And this movie did star Steven Seagal along with William Forsythe. James Darshon also has a role in this, ironically. Another reason to put them in a video together, right? Yeah, Out for Justice. I found this on Blu-ray as well at the exact same time. Really good price on it. And it's one of those, classic Seagal movies that I had heard good things about. This, Marked for Death, Hard to Kill, along with Above the Law, and a couple other ones perhaps. I feel like if I'm going to like Seagal, then I gotta check these out. And I explained myself to Seagal a little bit previously. I'm getting somewhere with it, but still gonna have that give and take relationship with him. Again, these taglines, man, I mean, he's a good cop in a bad mood. Then you have, he's a cop, it's a dirty job, but somebody's gotta take out the garbage. Thank God no one actually says that in the movie. But yeah, I was looking forward to seeing William Forsythe in this. He's quite a good character actor, if you know what I mean by that. I think the best I've seen from him is probably in The Devil's Rejects, Rob Zombie's film. And if you guys seen Daredevil, he was actually trying to oppose Kingpin in the prison in season 2. But he's been in a bunch of stuff over the years, and I was looking forward to him in this. And I feel like he wasn't really utilized to his fullest potential as a villain. I mean, I guess Seagal had a hand in, purposely cutting some of his scenes because he felt like he was getting more attention than his character. And there's plenty of stories about that with Seagal, so I believe it at this point. This is also the movie where that infamous sort of LaBelle story took place, with LaBelle choking out Seagal, and Seagal claimed he was immune to being choked out because of his Aikido training. I don't know if I want to go into that or what, but there's contradictions both ways, basically, and we know the amount of stories that up about Seagal, but we don't really got to say that either way, because Out for Justice, I think, was another solid one if you're looking for Seagal work. I would say, overall, I do think I preferred Marked for Death by a little bit. But in terms of Seagal himself in the movie, I think he gives maybe a better performance in this all around. His character, this is probably the most personality I've seen from Seagal. He plays a character named Gino Felino. Okay? Take a drink every time someone says Gino. Okay? But, they have a dynamic with him and his ex-wife in the movie, and then, as he sort of figures, tries to track down William Forsythe's character, Richie, he finds out more about his partner's life, since that he didn't really know as much about, and then uncovers that. And as he's tormenting the gang, trying to track down Richie, he's quite the sarcastic prick, and it's kind of fun. Apparently, this movie also features one of Seagal's favorite fight scenes he's done. That's in the bar. Basically, he uses the the pool ball, or the cue ball, excuse me, or whatever you want to say. Wraps it up, and he kind of uses that as like a improvised weapon. And it's pretty fun. There's constant fight scenes throughout. Seagal even picks up a stray puppy, buys it some pet food, and he eventually does take revenge on the guy who just dumped the puppy on the road. So that's probably the best part of it. Again, I would have liked more of William Forsythe. I guess there's more scenes with him that would actually showed some of his development, by like Seagal going to his parents, and since they had known each other since they were kids. Not telling his mommy on them, but telling what he may have to do to their son because of what he did to his best friend. But then you find out more about like the nastier or more lowly side to his best friend's life that he either didn't know about, or he didn't really find the right time to go into when he had known him. I probably don't gotta go too deep into this movie psychologically, but this was good. I mean, he seems to always be surrounded by a good supporting cast. I mean, in Marked for Death, he had Keith David, he had Basil Wallace, and this he had William Forsythe and things like that, Gina Gershon again. And it works, and for some reason, despite apparent issues on set, some pretty good Seagal personality in this, if you're looking for that. And there's some decent gunplay in this as well, with him in a shotgun. Although sometimes he holds shotguns and handguns kind of funny, like in a very outward kind of pistol way when he's still running like 20 feet. And he's just kind of holding it like that. I don't know, it's kind of weird. There's no funny Seagal chase scene in this though, so that was unfortunate. Or not. I forgot to mention the Danny Trejo role in Marked for Death. That was something. Out for Justice, despite William Forsythe being underutilized, it does have a pretty satisfying end. Some fun fight scenes, especially that pool thing. And really, I think it was paced pretty well as well, and put together nicely. It didn't feel as abrupt of an ending that Marked for Death had. I do think maybe it had a better ending than that. Marked for Death had a better final fight. I just mean in terms of where the movie in general ended. Marked for Death just ends with him and his buddy walking down the street, where he felt like there should have been more resolution shown, but this ends, when you think it would. So I guess that's one plus I can put out for it. But overall, I'm getting somewhere with Seagal. If I'm in the right mood, it's something. If I had to rate Out for Justice, I think I'm giving it like an 81%, maybe 83 if I'm feeling nice. I don't know. But yeah, overall, between all these movies, obviously Red Heat was definitely my favorite. But these are two of some of the better Seagal movies I've seen thus far, and I'll keep you posted as I go. So you guys thought about each of these, which ones are your favorites? Follow on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, like, subscribe. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.